He won't even see it coming. Let me get the money first. The words drifted through our thin kitchen wall like poison gas. I froze, my coffee mug halfway to my lips, straining to catch more of the hushed conversation between my wife Sarah and her sister Janet. But they'd moved away from the shared wall, their voices becoming indistinct whispers punctuated by nervous laughter. I set down the mug with trembling hands. 3 months of growing suspicion had just crystallized into cold, hard reality. My wife of 6 years was planning something, and I was the target. My name is David Chen, and I fix drones for a living. Commercial ones mostly. Real estate photographers, construction surveyors, the occasional film crew. It's honest work that requires patience, precision, and the ability to see problems others miss. Skills that would serve me well in the coming weeks. Sarah worked as vice principal at Riverside Middle School, a position that commanded respect in our suburban neighborhood. Parents praised her dedication at PTA meetings. Teachers sought her guidance. To the outside world, we were the model couple, stable jobs, nice house, seemingly happy marriage. But appearances, as I was learning, could be devastatingly deceptive. The morning after overhearing that conversation, I watched Sarah get ready for work with new eyes. She stood at our bedroom mirror, applying makeup with the same methodical precision she brought to everything else. Her reflection caught mine watching. "You're up early," she said, not turning around. "Couldn't sleep." Guilty conscience? The question came out sharper than intended, tinged with suspicion I couldn't quite hide. Sarah finally turned, eyebrow raised. "About what?" "Nothing, just, you've seemed different lately." "Distant?" She sighed, the sound carrying practiced irritation. "David, we've talked about this. I'm under enormous pressure at work. The district is breathing down my neck about test scores, and I'm dealing with 3 problem teachers who should have been fired years ago. I need support, not paranoia." The word paranoia hit like a slap. It was her favorite weapon lately. Any concern I raised was dismissed as irrational jealousy or work stress. Classic gaslighting, though I didn't have a name for it yet. "I'm not being paranoid. You're on your phone constantly. You come home late without explanation. And last night you were whispering with Janet about getting money from someone who won't see it coming." Sarah's hand froze mid-mascara application. For just a moment, I saw something flicker across her face, panic maybe, or calculation. Then her expression smoothed into practiced innocence. "You were eavesdropping on a private conversation? I was in my own kitchen. Janet's going through a messy divorce. We were discussing her legal strategy. Not everything is about you, David." The explanation came too quickly, too polished. But Sarah had always been good with words. It's what made her effective with difficult parents and defiant students. She could make black seem white if it served her purposes. I wanted to believe her. God, how I wanted to believe her. Marriage requires trust, and without it, you're just two strangers sharing a mortgage. But doubt, once planted, grows like weeds. Marcus, my 16-year-old stepson, wandered into the kitchen as Sarah was leaving. He'd been part of the package when I married his mother, a sullen kid still processing his father's abandonment. Over the years, we'd developed a decent relationship. Not father-son exactly, but respectful coexistence. "Mom seems stressed," he said, grabbing cereal. "Yeah, work stuff." Marcus nodded, but something in his expression seemed off. He'd been acting strange lately, too. More secretive, jumping when his phone buzzed, having hushed conversations that stopped when I entered rooms. I'd attributed it to typical teenage behavior, but now I wondered if there was more to it. "Hey, Marcus, has your mom mentioned anything about, I don't know, financial changes, new investments, or big purchases?" The kid's spoon clattered against his bowl. "Why would you ask that?" "Just curious. She's been talking about upgrading the car, maybe looking at that lake house property again." Marcus avoided my eyes. "I don't know anything about that stuff." But he did know something. I could see it in the way he suddenly found his cereal fascinating, the slight tremor in his voice. My stepson was keeping secrets, too. That evening, Sarah announced she'd be working late again, parent conferences that could run until 9. It was plausible. The school calendar confirmed conferences that week. But when I drove past the school at 8:30, the parking lot was nearly empty. I sat in my truck, engine running, staring at the dark windows of Sarah's office. Where was she? Who was she with? The questions gnawed at me like physical pain. My phone buzzed with a text from Sarah. "Running even later. Don't wait up. Love you. Love you." The casual sign-off felt like mockery now. When had those words become routine rather than meaningful? When had our marriage become a performance we were both too tired to believe in? I drove home through familiar suburban streets, past houses where other couples were probably settling in for evening routines. Dinner, television, casual conversation about their days, normal life. The life I thought I had, but was apparently losing without even knowing it. Back home, I found Marcus on the couch, laptop open, earbuds in. He glanced up when I entered, quickly minimizing whatever he'd been looking at. Mom's working late again? Yeah, conferences. Cool. He went back to his screen, but I caught him glancing at me nervously. That night, I lay awake until Sarah slipped into bed around 11:30. She smelled like unfamiliar cologne underneath her usual perfume, something masculine and expensive. When I reached for her, she claimed exhaustion and turned away. I stared at the ceiling, listening to her breathing gradually slow into sleep, and realized I was living with a stranger. The next morning brought Sarah's latest financial proposal over breakfast. I've been thinking about that lake property again, she said, buttering toast with casual precision. The Hendersons are ready to sell, and Janet thinks it's a great investment opportunity. Janet's suddenly a real estate expert? She's been researching investment properties since her divorce. The lake house could be our retirement fund. Buy now while prices are reasonable, rent it out for income, sell in 10 years when the area is more developed. It sounded logical, the kind of long-term thinking that had made our marriage financially stable, but the timing felt wrong. Coming right after that overheard conversation about getting money from someone who won't see it coming. How much are they asking? $85,000. We'd need to put down 20%, so about $17,000 from our savings. I nearly choked on my coffee. $17,000? Sarah, that's most of our emergency fund. Emergencies can be opportunities, David. We can't be afraid to take calculated risks. What's the rush? Properties like that sit on the market for months. Sarah's jaw tightened, a tell I'd learned to recognize over 6 years of marriage. The Hendersons have another buyer interested. We need to move quickly. Pressure tactics. Another red flag I was learning to spot. I'd like to see the property first. Maybe have it inspected. Of course. Her smile didn't reach her eyes. Janet's driving me out there Saturday. You could come along. Saturday came, but Janet called that morning claiming car trouble. Sarah suggested we postpone, but I insisted on going alone. The lake house turned out to be a rundown cabin with structural issues that would cost thousands to fix. When I called the Hendersons directly, they seemed confused. They weren't in any hurry to sell and had no other buyer. Sarah had lied about everything. That evening, I confronted her about the discrepancies. She claimed miscommunication with Janet, insisted the Hendersons were probably playing games to drive up the price. More explanations that sounded reasonable but felt wrong. Maybe we should wait on any big purchases, I suggested. Fine. The word came out clipped, angry. I guess I shouldn't have expected you to support my ideas. And there it was. The subtle blame shift that made me the bad guy for being cautious with our money. Sarah was good at making me feel guilty for normal reactions to suspicious behavior, but I was getting better at recognizing her tactics. The next week, I took a long lunch and visited our bank. What I discovered made my stomach drop. Sarah had opened a separate savings account 3 months earlier, one I knew nothing about. The account had received several large deposits, $2,000 here, $1,500 there, amounts that totaled nearly $8,000. Where was this money coming from? Her teacher's salary was modest, and I knew every penny of our household income. Unless, I'd like to review all accounts associated with my Social Security number, I told the banker. 20 minutes later, I was staring at loan documents bearing my forged signature. Sarah had taken out a personal loan for $12,000, using me as cosigner without my knowledge or consent. The money had gone into that secret account, and she'd been making minimum payments while letting interest accumulate. My hands shook as I photographed the documents with my phone. My wife hadn't just betrayed me emotionally. She'd committed financial fraud using my identity. Walking back to my truck, I felt like I was moving through thick fog. The woman I'd shared a bed with for 6 years had systematically deceived me about our finances while planning something that required stolen money. The scope of her deception was breathtaking. But I was just getting started uncovering the truth. That evening, while Sarah worked late again, I searched our home office. Hidden in the back of her desk drawer, I found printed emails from someone named River Delta 99. Messages filled with intimate details and future plans that made my stomach churn. Can't wait to be together properly, one read. Just a few more weeks and we'll have everything we need to start over. Another? D doesn't suspect anything. He's so wrapped up in his drones, he barely notices what's happening around him. The messages painted a picture of methodical betrayal, months of planning, financial maneuvering, and emotional manipulation designed to position Sarah for a clean exit with maximum resources. I was being systematically robbed by the person I trusted most. But who was River Delta 99? The answer came 3 days later through pure accident. I was grabbing lunch at Downtown Cafe when I spotted Sarah at a corner table, holding hands with a man I recognized from her old photo albums. Tom Bradley, her ex-fiancé from before we met, the relationship that supposedly ended amicably years ago. They were deep in intimate conversation, her head tilted toward his in the universal posture of lovers. As I watched from behind a newspaper, Tom slid an envelope across the table. Sarah opened it, smiled, and leaned over to kiss him. I took photos through the cafe window, my hands surprisingly steady despite the rage building in my chest. Finally, I had proof of the affair. But I also realized this was bigger than simple infidelity. This was conspiracy. Tom owned a successful accounting firm. He had the resources to help Sarah establish a new life and the expertise to help her drain our accounts efficiently. They weren't just having an affair, they were planning a heist. That night, I pretended everything was normal. Sarah came home with grocery bags and a story about working late on budget reports. She even kissed my cheek while unpacking milk and bread. The perfect picture of domestic contentment. "How was your day?" she asked. "Quiet. Fixed a crashed surveyor drone, updated some software. You?" "Oh, the usual chaos. Parent complaints, teacher drama, budget meetings." She paused, studying my face. "You seem tense." "Just tired." Sarah nodded, but I caught her watching me carefully as she moved around the kitchen. She was evaluating, calculating, trying to read whether I suspected anything. The realization that my wife was constantly analyzing me for weaknesses felt like another betrayal. Later, as she showered, I checked her phone. She'd been careless, leaving it on the nightstand while she washed off the scent of another man. The messages I found confirmed everything I'd feared and worse. Tom wasn't just helping her cheat, he was helping her destroy me. "We need to accelerate the timeline," Sarah texted Tom. "Dee is getting suspicious." "Can you move up the closing?" Tom's response chilled me. "Already in motion. Property purchase scheduled for next week. Once your name is on the deed, we can trigger the separation. Your lawyer has the papers ready?" "Drafted and waiting." "Marcus is on board. He's been copying Dee's financial documents like you suggested." "Marcus?" "My stepson wasn't just keeping secrets. He was actively helping them rob me. I photographed every message, every email, every document I could find. The scope of their plan was stunning in its thoroughness. They'd identified every asset, every account, every valuable possession. Sarah had been planning to leave me with essentially nothing while walking away with half of everything we'd built together, plus the money she'd stolen through fraudulent loans. But knowledge is power, and I was finally learning how much power I actually had. The next morning, I called in sick to work and drove to the county courthouse. Public records revealed that Tom had indeed purchased a lake house, not the rundown cabin Sarah had shown me, but a beautiful property worth 3 times what she'd claimed. The deed showed both his name and Sarah's, dated just 2 days earlier. My wife now owned property with her lover, purchased with money stolen from our marriage. But they'd made a crucial mistake. By putting Sarah's name on the deed while she was still married to me, they'd made the property part of our marital assets. Whatever they'd paid for it, I was entitled to half. I also discovered that Sarah had used our joint credit to secure part of the down payment. Every financial move they'd made had left a paper trail that would destroy them both if properly documented. That afternoon, I hired a private investigator named Lisa Rodriguez. Lisa specialized in marital infidelity and financial fraud, exactly what I needed. "How long has this been going on?" Lisa asked, reviewing the evidence I'd gathered. "The affair, maybe 6 months. The financial fraud goes back at least 3 months that I can prove. Your wife's been planning this for a while. The good news is she's made several mistakes that will help your case. The forged loan documents alone constitute felony fraud. Adding the property purchase with marital assets, she's opened herself up to serious legal consequences. What do you recommend?" "Gather more evidence before confronting her. Once she knows you're aware, she'll start covering tracks and moving assets. Right now, she feels safe, which makes her careless." Lisa was right. For the next week, I played the role of oblivious husband while methodically documenting every aspect of their scheme. I tracked Sarah's movements, photographed her meetings with Tom, recorded conversations where she discussed their plans with Janet. It was during one of these surveillance sessions that I discovered the final piece of their puzzle. Sarah met with a divorce attorney named Patricia Mills, a lawyer known for aggressive tactics and high-asset divorces. Through the investigator's contacts, I learned that Sarah planned to file for separation immediately after securing the lake house, claiming emotional misuse and financial neglect as grounds. The strategy was brilliant in its cruelty. Sarah would portray herself as the sufferer of a controlling husband who withheld affection and financial support. Tom would be positioned as the concerned friend who helped her escape an abusive situation. The fraudulent loans would be painted as desperate attempts to secure independence from a manipulative spouse. It might have worked too if I hadn't discovered their plan in advance. But I had discovered it, and now it was time to turn their strategy against them. I've been thinking about what you said regarding the lake house, I told Sarah over dinner. Maybe we should move forward with the investment. Sarah's fork paused halfway to her mouth. Really? I thought you were against it. I was being overcautious. You're right about taking calculated risks. If Janet thinks it's a good opportunity, we should trust her judgment. The lie came easily now. After weeks of living with deception, I'd learned to speak her language. That's great, David. But I should mention, the Hendersons decided to go with the other buyer. The property's no longer available. That's disappointing. Are there other similar properties? I'll ask Janet to keep looking. Sarah was scrambling now, trying to explain away her lies without revealing the truth. Watching her struggle felt like the first victory I'd had in months. That weekend, while Sarah attended a supposed school conference, I met with my own divorce attorney. Margaret Stone came highly recommended for her expertise in complex financial cases. Your wife has committed multiple felonies, Margaret said after reviewing my evidence. Forgery, fraud, identity theft, conspiracy to commit theft. If you wanted to press criminal charges, you could probably send her to prison. I want her to face consequences, but I mainly want to protect myself financially. We can do both. File for divorce citing irreconcilable differences, then present evidence of her fraudulent activities. The court will award you the lion's share of marital assets as compensation for her misconduct. We can also pursue civil remedies for the financial fraud. What about the property she bought with Tom? Since she used marital assets and credit, you're entitled to half its value. We can force a sale and recover your share, plus damages for the fraudulent loans. Margaret laid out a comprehensive strategy that would leave Sarah facing both civil and criminal consequences while protecting my financial interests. It was more thorough than anything Sarah and Tom had planned. But I wanted more than legal victory. I wanted them to experience the same shock and betrayal they'd planned for me. Over the next 2 weeks, I implemented my counterplan. Using the investigators' help, I gathered additional evidence of their conspiracy. Photos of them at romantic dinners, recordings of phone calls where they discussed my assets, bank records showing the flow of stolen money. I also did something they never expected. I got Marcus alone and showed him some of the evidence. Your mom's been planning to divorce me, I said, laying out printed emails on his desk. She and Tom have been stealing money from our accounts to fund their new life together. Marcus stared at the documents, his face cycling through confusion, denial, and finally understanding. She said you were being mean to her, that you were trying to control the money and keep her from being independent. Has she asked you to do anything to help with that independence? Marcus's face crumpled. She wanted me to copy your files. Financial stuff, passwords, account numbers. She said it was in case something happened to you so she could take care of things. What did you copy? Everything I could find. Bank statements, investment accounts, insurance policies. She said it was just being prepared. The kid had been manipulated as thoroughly as I had. Sarah had turned her own son into an unwitting accomplice in her fraud scheme. Marcus, I need you to understand something. Your mom isn't just leaving me. She's stealing from both of us. The money she's taking is your college fund, your inheritance, everything we've saved for your future. What are you going to do? I'm going to stop her, but I need your help. Marcus looked at the evidence again, then at me. What do you want me to do? Just keep doing what you've been doing. Copy files when she asks, but make sure I know what she's looking for. It felt wrong involving a teenager in adult conflicts, but Marcus was already involved whether I liked it or not. At least this way, he could help prevent his mother from destroying our family's future. The trap was set. Now I just had to wait for them to spring it. The opportunity came sooner than expected. Sarah announced another late night at school. budget meetings that would run until 10. But the investigator confirmed she was actually meeting Tom at the lake house to finalize their separation timeline. Perfect. That evening, I told Marcus I was taking him out for dinner, just the two of us, a chance to talk without distractions. He seemed nervous, but agreed. "Where are we going?" he asked as we drove through downtown. "Somewhere your mom likes. That new place by the lake." Marcus went pale. "The lake? Why there?" "I thought the view would be nice." "Relaxing." We parked outside the restaurant, which happened to offer a perfect view of the lake house where Sarah and Tom were having their romantic evening. Through binoculars, we could see them on the deck, sharing wine and what looked like celebration. "Is that—" Marcus began. "Your mom and Tom?" "Yes." Marcus stared through the binoculars, watching his mother kiss another man while planning to destroy the family that had raised him. When he handed them back, there were tears in his eyes. "I didn't know it was this serious." "She's been planning this for months. The money she had you help steal? They're using it to buy that house where they're celebrating tonight." We drove home in silence, Marcus processing the reality of his mother's betrayal. When we arrived, I noticed Janet's car in our driveway. Sarah's sister was waiting in our living room, apparently tasked with keeping an eye on things, while Sarah was busy with Tom. "David, you're back early. Where's Sarah?" "Working late. Budget meetings, you know how it is." Janet nodded, but her expression seemed strained. "Yes, she mentioned that. Very dedicated to her job. Almost too dedicated lately. Sometimes I wonder if there's something more interesting than budgets keeping her at the office." The comment hit its mark. Janet's face flushed slightly, and she became suddenly interested in her purse. "Well, I should go. Tell Sarah I stopped by." "Actually, Janet, could you stay for a few minutes? I have something I'd like to discuss with you." Janet hesitated, clearly wanting to leave, but unable to think of a polite excuse. "I suppose I have a few minutes." I retrieved a folder from my desk, copies of the evidence I'd gathered over the past month. Photos, bank records, loan documents, email printouts. I spread them across the coffee table like a poker player revealing a winning hand. "I know about Tom," I said simply. Janet's face went white. She glanced at Marcus, who was standing in the doorway, then back at the evidence. "David, I don't know what you think you know, but I know Sarah has been having an affair for months. I know she forged my signature on loan documents to steal $12,000. I know she and Tom bought property using money stolen from our marriage. I know you've been helping coordinate their meetings and providing alibis." Janet stared at the photographs of Sarah and Tom together, the bank records showing the fraudulent loans, the property deed bearing both their names. "This isn't what it looks like. It's exactly what it looks like. The question is, do you understand you've been helping your sister commit multiple felonies?" "Felonies?" Janet's voice cracked. "Forgery, fraud, identity theft, conspiracy. Sarah could go to prison for this, and anyone who helped her could be charged as an accessory." Janet looked at Marcus again, perhaps realizing for the first time that a child had been dragged into this scheme. "Sarah said you were being controlling, that you wouldn't let her have access to money for legitimate expenses. Does this look like legitimate expenses?" I showed her the photos of Sarah and Tom at romantic dinners, the records of expensive gifts, the lake house purchase. Janet sank into the couch, finally understanding the scope of what her sister had been doing. "Oh my God, Sarah, what have you done? The question is, what are you going to do now?" Before Janet could answer, we heard Sarah's car in the driveway. She was home early from her fake meeting, probably wanting to coordinate with Janet before I returned. "Janet," Sarah called, entering the house. "Is everything—" She stopped short, seeing the evidence spread across the coffee table, her sister's guilty expression, and my calm smile. "Hello, sweetheart. How were the budget meetings?" Sarah's eyes darted from the photographs to the bank statements to Marcus standing in the doorway. I could see her calculating, trying to determine how much I knew and whether she could still salvage the situation. "David, I can explain. Please do. Start with how you forged my signature to steal $12,000. It wasn't stealing. We're married. I needed access to funds for buying a lake house with your boyfriend." Sarah's facade finally cracked. The careful mask of innocence fell away, replaced by cold anger. "You were spying on me. I was protecting myself from a thief. I'm not a thief. I'm your wife, and I'm entitled to half of everything we have. You're entitled to half through divorce proceedings, not through fraud and forgery." Sarah looked at Janet, perhaps expecting support, but her sister was staring at the floor. Then she looked at Marcus, who met her gaze with disappointment that must have cut deeper than any accusation. Marcus, go to your room, Sarah said. No! The word came out strong, clear. I want to hear this. This is adult business. I'm the one who helped you steal from David, Marcus said. I copied his files because you told me he was being mean to you, but you were lying. You were using me to help you steal from us. Sarah's composure shattered completely. You don't understand the situation. David has been emotionally distant, financially controlling. I understand you've been planning to take everything and leave us with nothing, Marcus interrupted. I understand you've been meeting with Tom Bradley for months, planning your new life with money you stole from our family. How dare you judge me? I've sacrificed everything for this family, worked 2 jobs to keep us comfortable while your stepfather played with his toys in the garage. The words came out raw, angry, revealing the resentment she'd been hiding behind her perfect wife. Performance. My toys? I laughed. Those toys pay our mortgage. Those toys funded the college account you've been planning to steal from. I wasn't stealing Marcus's college money. Then explain the withdrawals from his education fund to pay for your lake house down payment. Sarah went silent. She hadn't realized I discovered that particular theft. You took money from your own son's future to fund your affair, I continued. What kind of mother does that? The kind who's tired of living a lie, Sarah exploded. Yes, I'm having an affair. Yes, I want out of this marriage. And yes, I deserve to take everything I can get because I've earned it by putting up with 6 years of emotional neglect. There it was. The truth behind all the manipulation and lies. Sarah felt entitled to destroy me because she'd convinced herself I deserved it. If you wanted a divorce, you should have filed for one honestly instead of committing crimes to stack the deck. I needed to protect my interests. By forging my signature? By stealing my identity? By turning your son into an accomplice? Sarah looked around the room, at Janet's guilty expression, at Marcus's disappointed face, at the evidence of her crimes spread across our coffee table. Finally, she seemed to realize that her carefully constructed plan had collapsed completely. What do you want? She asked. Justice, I said simply. The next morning, I filed for divorce and presented my evidence to both the family court and the district attorney's office. Margaret Stone, my attorney, had prepared a comprehensive case that detailed every aspect of Sarah's fraud, while positioning me as the sufferer of systematic financial misuse. Sarah tried to recover by hiring Patricia Mills, the aggressive divorce attorney she'd already consulted. But Mills quickly realized that defending someone caught red-handed in multiple felonies was a losing proposition. The evidence was too comprehensive, too well documented to dismiss or explain away. Within a week, Sarah was facing both civil and criminal charges. The school district launched their own investigation when they learned their vice principal had been committing fraud, using sick days to conduct her affair, and potentially misusing school resources for personal communication with Tom. The dominoes fell quickly after that. Tom's accounting firm fired him when news of his involvement became public. His professional reputation was destroyed by association with financial fraud, regardless of his actual legal culpability. The lake house they'd purchased together became the subject of a civil suit, forcing its sale to recover the stolen marital assets. Janet, terrified of being charged as an accessory, provided investigators with additional evidence of Sarah's planning, including recorded conversations where Sarah had discussed taking David for everything he's worth. But the most devastating consequence was Marcus's reaction. My stepson, who had been manipulated into betraying the man who'd raised him, was consumed with guilt and anger toward his mother. He refused to speak with Sarah for weeks, communicating only through me or his grandmother. I hate her, he told me one evening as we worked on rebuilding a crash surveyor drone together. She made me part of it. She made me help hurt you. She's still your mother, Marcus. She made terrible choices, but that doesn't erase the good times or the love she has for you. How can you defend her after what she did? I'm not defending her actions, but I understand that people make destructive choices when they feel trapped or unhappy. Your mom felt our marriage was over, and instead of handling it honestly, she tried to control the outcome through deception. Will you forgive me? For helping her? You were being manipulated by someone you trusted. There's nothing to forgive. Marcus hugged me then, the first real physical affection we'd shared since the confrontation. Despite everything Sarah had done to our family, her betrayal had somehow brought her son and me closer together. The legal proceedings moved swiftly. Sarah pled guilty to fraud charges in exchange for a suspended sentence and restitution payments. The divorce settlement awarded me 70% of our marital assets, plus full ownership of the house and Marcus's custody. Sarah was required to pay back the stolen money, plus interest and legal fees. The lake house sale provided partial restitution, but she would be making payments for years to come. Her teaching career was over. The school district terminated her employment, and her criminal conviction made her ineligible for any position requiring trust or financial responsibility. Tom's accounting practice never recovered from the scandal, eventually closing entirely. But the most satisfying consequence was watching their romantic fantasy crumble under the weight of legal and financial pressure. By the time the dust settled, Sarah and Tom were both unemployed, facing massive legal bills, and dealing with the stress of having their private communications read in court proceedings. Their great love affair, built on deception and theft, couldn't survive the harsh light of public scrutiny. 6 months after the confrontation, I was living in a smaller apartment with Marcus, slowly rebuilding our lives. The house had sold quickly, providing enough equity to establish a new household and replenish the college fund Sarah had raided. Marcus was thriving in his new school, having decided he wanted a fresh start, away from the drama surrounding his mother's downfall. He'd grown more mature through the ordeal, developing a healthy skepticism toward manipulation, while maintaining his essential kindness. "Do you ever regret exposing Mom?" he asked one evening. "I regret that it was necessary. But no, I don't regret protecting our family from further damage. Do you think she'll be okay?" "Your mom is smart and resourceful. She'll find a way to rebuild her life, hopefully with more honesty this time." Sarah had moved back in with Janet, working part-time retail while studying for real estate certification. We maintained minimal contact, coordinating only when necessary for Marcus's visits. She'd never apologized directly, but her messages carried an undertone of regret that suggested she understood the magnitude of her mistakes. Tom had disappeared entirely, moving to another state to escape the local scandal. The last I heard, he was working as a bookkeeper for a small business, a significant step down from his former position, but probably all he could manage with his reputation destroyed. As for me, I'd discovered that surviving betrayal had made me stronger and more self-reliant. The skills I developed in documenting Sarah's deceptions served me well in other areas of life. I approached problems more systematically, trusted my instincts more readily, and maintained better boundaries in relationships. My drone repair business had grown significantly, boosted by referrals from satisfied customers who respected how I'd handled my personal crisis. There's something to be said for being known as someone who doesn't tolerate deception, even from family.